Yo, what's up people? Welcome to another Magic the Gathering video. Today we're gonna look at another EDH Dragon Elder Highlander Commander deck. And today we're gonna look at green-black. Very heavy black, a bit of green. And today our general is Jarad, the Golgari Lich Lord. So this is already telling you a bit about what this deck is gonna do. There's going to be Sacrifice, there's going to be Graveplay, there is going to be like recurring loops from battlefield to graveyard, back to battlefield, stuff like that. And first of all, of course, is the Jarad, the Golgari Lich Lord, and 2/2 legendary elf zombie. And he gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. So in late game, this can be quite the knocker, and even early game, if you get a few creatures in your graveyard, he's not that easy to kill, at least with damage. And for 1 black and green, you can sacrifice another creature. Each opponent deals life to the sacrificed creature's power. Okay, that can be cool. And you can see, of course, with recursion loops, you can do quite a lot of damage. And you can also sacrifice a swamp and a forest and return Jarad from your graveyard to your hand, which is quite nice. So if you don't want to pay more for Jarad every time he goes into the command zone, just let him go into graveyard and then just basically get him back if you sacrifice some lands. Alright, let's look at the creatures first and foremost. First we have the Archfiend of Depravity. This thing, as soon as it hits the battlefield, it basically restricts everybody to 2 creatures or less, basically. So at the beginning of each player's end step, the player chooses 2 creatures and sacrifices everything else. Well, every other creature, which is pretty nice. So basically, this does not only function as a mass removal against somebody who has a lot of creatures, but since it restricts opponents to 2 creatures, a lot of your sacrifice spells, like sacrifice a creature, get a lot more potent with this thing. The Avatar of Voe, 6/5 for 8. That's stupid. Well, no, if there are 10 or more creature cards in all graveyards, he costs 6 less to play, so 2 mana. That can happen quite quickly, of course. And he also has Fear, which is really nice. And for tap, you can destroy target creature. It can be regenerated. So yeah, this is a must remove on the battlefield if you want to play any creatures, so that's why it's nice. Butcher of Malakir, of course, is amazing. Whenever he or another creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature, so it punishes people for removing your creatures, and you can also remove your own creatures for benefit and then let everybody else sacrifice, which is amazing. The Champion of Stray Souls, which is a sack outlet for 1. You can sacrifice X other creatures and then return X creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Well, it also costs 5, but still, this is kind of the recursion grave loop that I was talking about. This is one of the engines, really. And for 5 black, you can put the Champion of Stray Souls on the top of your library from your graveyard. So even if they kill it, they don't get rid of it. So they really have to exile it to get rid of it completely. The Corpse Connoisseur, when you play it, when it comes into the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card and put it into your graveyard. For obvious reasons, because you want to play it from there. And also you can unearth this thing, meaning you can return this card from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. And if it would die or leave the battlefield otherwise, it just gets exiled. So you can also do this only as a sorcery, but still, you can play it, then sacrifice it to something, unearth it, sacrifice it again, get a lot of benefit from it, you know? Creekwood Leech just makes black and green creatures stronger, which we have, of course, a lot of in this deck, and it generates tokens at the beginning of your turn, which is also nice for sacrificing. The Deathrite Shaman, it allows you to remove stuff from graveyards, and depending on what you remove, you get benefits. So if you remove a land, you may add a mana of any color to your mana pool. If you remove an instant or sorcery, each opponent loses 2 life, and if you remove a creature, you gain 2 life. And that's from every graveyard, right? So that can be very useful. The Doom Cave, it's a 10/10 trample. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you sacrifice a creature and gain life to that creature's toughness. That's okay, it's a big baddie, really. The Fauna Shaman, you discard a creature card and search your library for a creature card and put it into your hand. So this is a 2-for-1, effectively, because normally discarding a card is not that good, but of course in Graveplay decks, you want your stuff in the graveyard, right? So this gives you stuff into the graveyard and something into your hand. So you can assemble combos really nicely. The Flashback Marauder, very classical, everybody sacrifices a creature when he comes into play. Golgari Rotworm, it's a sacrifice outlet that lets people lose lives. Just one, but it is a sacrifice outlet. The Gravedigger, of course a classical card, gets you stuff from your graveyard. The Harvester of Souls, whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. That is a card draw engine for this kind of deck. And since it's a 5/5 Death Touch Demon, it also is quite a potent creature. The Havoc Demon, that is a mini removal if you can feed it to a sack outlet or if it gets killed. So -5/-5, it's nothing to sneeze at, really. And of course we have Kokusho, the Evening Star. If he is put into the graveyard from play, each opponent loses 5 life and you gain equal to the life lost this way. So for example, you can sacrifice this to Doomgape, gain 5 life and then get another life from his actual trigger, and then for example get him back with Champion of Stray Souls and stuff like that. Lord of Extinction, quite the descriptive name here. His power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in all graveyards. Yeah, get this late game. If it's not getting removed until next turn, you're gonna smash somebody's face in. It does not have any evasion, but with this deck it should not be too hard to actually get rid of creatures that can block. The Massacre Worm is, when he comes into the battlefield, he gets everything -2/-2. At least creatures opponents control get -2/-2, so it's a little mini removal. And whenever creatures your opponents control die, they lose 2 life. Neat. Merciless Executioner is just another Flashback Marauder. It actually costs the same. It has the same power. It is a Flashback Marauder, for all we know. Merin of Clan Neltoth. That's the general from one of the commander decks. So whenever a creature you control dies, you get an experience counter at the beginning of each end step, I think it is. You choose a creature card in your graveyard with mana cost equal to experience counter or less than the experience counters you have, and then put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise you can put it into your hand. So it's useful regardless if you have enough experience counters or not. So that's pretty nice. The Night Howler, you can bestow this onto one of your creatures, or you can play it as a creature himself. And it's an XX creature, or rather it gets +X, where X is the number of creatures in all graveyards. So that's pretty neat. The Phyto Titan, is that how you pronounce that? If it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of his or her next upkeep. So it's a bit of a delay between sacrificing and getting it back, but you get it back regardless, which is nice. You have nothing, you don't need to do anything, so that's cool. Primal Druid, if it dies, you search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped. So you can see with sacrificing you can get quite the use out of this. Reaper of the Wilds, whenever a creature dies, so I won. Cool, we take that. And it can also get Death Touch and Hexproof. Alright. Runescarred Demon is basically a demonic tutor stitched to the back of a 6/6 flying demon. We take that. Sakura Tribe Elder, you can sacrifice him to get a basic land onto the battlefield tapped. Very nice in this deck. The Sapling of Kolfenor, it's indestructible, and it has a kind of Dark Confident effect to it. Whenever it attacks, well, it's not quite a Dark Confident, but it's very useful. Whenever it attacks, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a Each card you gain life equal to its toughness and lose life equal to its power, and then put it in your hand. So you want this thing attacking every turn, and since it is indestructible, that's not really an issue. Then there's the Scourge of Neltov. It's flying, it's a 6/6 nasty dragon, and for 2 black and sacrificing 2 creatures, you can play it from your grave. Alright, the Vengevine is very interesting. It's a 4/3 with haste, and whenever you cast a spell, if it's your second spell, you may return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. Ouch. Viridian Emissary is the same as the Primal Druid. If it dies, you search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Viridian Zealot, sacrifice him to destroy an artifact or enchantment, which is nice. And Visara the Dreadful, it's a 5/5 flying Gorgon with tap, destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. Alright, so these are all our creatures, a lot of destruction, a lot of sacrificing, some stuff that lets you get back creatures from the graveyard. That's pretty solid. Now let's put some more spells into this. Let's start with instants. We have the Beast Within, a very solid green card. A Faded Retribution, no, not Retribution, Faded Return, of course. You put a card from the graveyard to the battlefield under your control. So that's from a graveyard. You can also choose the opponent's graveyard. And if it's your turn, it gains Indestructible. Oh no, it gains Indestructible, and if it's your turn, you scry 2. That's pretty nice. Golgari Charm, it has 3 modes, you can only choose one. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. Okay, that can be useful. Limited times. Destroy target enchantment, that's neat. Regenerate each creature you control. Alright, an anti-mass removal spell. We take that, really. The Murder, not too much to say about that, that's just classic. Petrify, destroy target artifact or creature, it can't be regenerated. Solid. To the Slaughter, you target a player and he sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker. If you have Delirium, he sacrifices a creature and a planeswalker. Most of the time, that will not be a big bonus, because most of the time people will not have just one creature and one planeswalker out that you can like surely say, oh yeah, he's gonna sacrifice these 2, that's nice. Most of the time they don't have a planeswalker, and if they have a planeswalker they might have a lot of creatures, so yeah, it has not always 100% use of the Delirium, but it's nice to have it really, and it's for free basically. The Decree of Pain, as we move on to the sorceries, is a pretty nice mass removal. No regeneration allowed, of course, and you can cycle it if you don't have enough mana and if you need cards instantly, and if you cycle it, everything gets still -2/-2. Okay, Diabolic Tutor, well, nothing too much to say about that. Explosive Vegetation, you get a lot of basic lands. In Garruk's Wake, a very potent board wipe for your opponents only. So if you're gonna be the one left standing with all creatures, that is pretty cool. The Primal command, not the best command in the world. Of course, like every command, you choose 2 from these modes. You either can get target player 7 life. Yeah, okay. Put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library. That can be useful sometimes for enchantments that bother you. Target player shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library. Can be useful for you, can also be useful to do to an enemy, depending on what deck he plays. And search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle the library. That is fine. You know, as I said, it's not the best command, but I like it. The Rampant Growth for more basic lands. Read the Bones. It's very simple. Scry 2, draw 2, lose 2. Very simple card. Ruinous Path to target creatures or planeswalkers specifically, if you really need to, and you can awaken something if you want. Seasons Past is a nice card. You return any number of cards with different converted mana cost from the graveyard to your hand, and then put Seasons Past on the bottom of its owner's library. So you can get a lot after this, actually. Traverse the Ulvenwald. If you play it early, if you don't have Delirium, it's just a search your library for a basic land, put it in your hand. If you play it with Delirium, you can search for a land or a creature, which is pretty nice. The Treasured Find, you return a card from your graveyard to your hand, exile Treasured Find. That is very simple. And last but not least, Yagamoth's Will, which I think is a great card. Until end of turn, you may play cards from your graveyard as though they were in your hand. Cards put into your graveyard this turn are removed from the game instead. So you have to be a bit careful. You can play Yagamoth's Will, of course, and play everything and sack everything again, but if you do, you remove everything from the game. So you rather play everything, prepare, end your turn, and in his turn, start sacrificing. That's much more intelligent, actually. And now, let's go to the artifacts. There's a few here. Bone Horde is a living weapon, so it comes attached to a 00 germ token, I think it is. And it is following equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of feature cards in all graveyards. Youch. Give that to one of your demons and he will wreak havoc upon the battlefield. Then there's of course the trio of Golgari Cluestone, Golgari Keyrune, Golgari Signet. Very simple. There is a Nim Deathmantle. This is one of the artifacts that allows you to do this kind of recurring sacrifice loop, which is very nice if you have enough mana. And that's why we have so much ramp in this. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, into your graveyard, obviously, you may pay 4. If you do, return that creature to the battlefield and attach Nim Deathmantle to it. So you can do small stuff with it. You can, for example, Sakura Tribe Elder, sacrifice, get a land. Nim Deathmantle triggers, get him back, sacrifice him, get a land. And sadly enough, of course, the lands come into play tapped, otherwise you could do this quite a lot. But still, it's just this little recurring land gain you have. Or you can do, of course, a lot more silly stuff with it. You can do a pseudo mass removal with a Flashback Marauder. You play it, sacrifice it, get it back, play sacrifice it. You can do some silly stuff with it, really. It's a great artifact. The Whip of Erebos gives every creature you have lifelink, which is pretty nice. And if you tap it, play 2 and 2 black mana, you may return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, and you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Also, if it dies or leaves the battlefield in any sort of way, you exile it instead. You can only do this as a sorcery, so don't do it in the opponent's turn, you can't do that. But it can, of course, catch people off guard. You can remove their blocker, and then just Whip of Erebos, and return your, I don't know, 10/10 Doomgate and just smash them. Or the Lord of Extinction. A Lord of Extinction with haste. That's a scary thought, actually. Alright, now last but not least, well, not quite last actually, the enchantments. We have Animate Dead, which of course is a nice little enchantment you put onto a creature in your graveyard, and it gets back to play with the -1/-0. It's a neat little aura. I think almost everybody puts that in a black deck because it's so nice. Black Market. Whenever a creature dies, put a charge counter on Black Market at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. Add 1 black mana to your mana pool for each charge counter. That can get out of hand quickly, especially if you do this sacrifice loop that I told you about with the Sakura Tribe Elder. It's just crazy. So yeah, with recurring sacrifice loops, you can get this on a quite high counter amount. And then, of course, you get really out of hand if you have a lot of mana like this. The Dead Bridge Chant. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you put the top 10 cards of your library into your graveyard. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, choose a card at random from your graveyard. If it's a creature, it goes onto the battlefield. Otherwise, it goes into your hand. So yeah, you, of course, throw away 10 cards at the beginning, but that's really not a problem for you. And then you get 1 card back randomly every turn. And if you manage to get more cards back from your graveyard, then out the selection, you can get even more use out of this. The Dictator of Erebos, that's also a very classical black card, I think. If you flash that enchantment in at the right time, it's gonna catch people off guard so quickly. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifice a creature. Again, with recurring sacrifice loops, ouch, so brutal. The Phyrexian Arena, I think I put this in every black deck if I can, because it's so good. The Unhallowed Pact, you can do some silly stuff with this. It's an enchantment, you put it onto a creature, and if the creature dies, it returns to the battlefield under your control. So there's two things you can do with this. You can put it on your own creature, sacrifice it, put it on the battlefield again, sacrifice it again, or just attack with it, let it trade, and then get it back. Or you put it onto an opponent's big creature, let him sacrifice that big creature or destroy it in some way, shape or form, and then you get it. So it's a very versatile card at this, so that's nice. And the last thing, the Planeswalker Garruk the Apex Predator. He is awesome. For +1 you can just flat out destroy another Planeswalker, youch. For another +1 you put a 3/3 black bear token with Death Touch onto the battlefield, which is a very nice defender for a Planeswalker, I have to admit. And -3, which he can do from the get-go, since he comes into play with 5 loyalty counters. -3 is destroy target creature, you gain life to its toughness. Okay. And a -8, if you ever get to this, that's a fun thing in EDH, in Commander, because target opponent gets an emblem with whenever a creature attacks you, it gains +5/+5 and gains trample until end of turn. So you're telling the whole table, you should attack this guy. It's pretty savage, actually. Alright, as for the lands, we have, well, a lot of double lands, of course. Also, I have some lands with cycling in here, because I think it's very cool to cycle some of the lands if you already have enough out of on the battlefield. Really, sometimes you really want a card. So there's some of these. There's also some sacrifice outlets here, like the Grim Backwoods, sacrifice to draw a card, and the High Market, sacrifice to gain 1 life. So sacrifice outlets everywhere. And just for your information, how many basic lands are in this? 6 forests and 12 swamps. So that's 18 basic lands, so there's a lot of recurring land gain you can get. It thins out your deck very quickly and you can get a lot of lands. So that's pretty neat. Alright, everything else is very standard. Double lands, search lands, fetch lands, you know, the standard stuff. Alright, so you have seen this deck, you have seen what it does. A lot of Graveplay, a lot of recurring, sacrificing and getting things back. And you know, it's very strong in the regard that you cannot really remove the stuff unless you have exile effects, a lot of them. But that of course is what this deck is weak against. It's very weak against decks that have a lot of control when it comes to your graveyard. If they have a lot of exile effects, that's very bad for you. There's enchantments, I think, that make every card that goes into your graveyard gets exiled instead. That's very deadly for you. Then you have to play a lot more resourceful. You have to really think about what you need to sacrifice and what you want to keep. So it limits you a lot in what you do. So these kind of decks are annoying. Otherwise, I don't think there's a lot of decks that it really struggles against. Of course, there's... On the other hand, it's not like it beats every deck hands down. It does not. I think it's a very balanced deck in that regard. You know? That you can make mistakes, you can lose your creatures, you can lose everything to a mass removal because you might get it back, you know? So I think this is actually a very good deck for people who don't know how to play very well, maybe? Because it has a big error margin, so to speak. And of course, if you are a very skilled player, you can do this crazy, like, as I said, like a ton of times already, these crazy loops with sacrificing, getting things back, getting something out of the sacrificing, let other people sacrifice, and so forth. So there's a lot of like a range in this deck, what you can do with it. It's a very good floor and a very high ceiling, I think. if you're really good. So yeah, I think that's enough for today. I hope you like this, and I'll see you in a few weeks with another Commander deck. Until then, take care.
Sorry.